Hello and welcome to Dateline New Haven. I'm your host, Paul Bass, inviting you to look behind the headlines and how the story on the stories that make our community tick. Well, there's a match being lit in Fairhaven. Match is an acronym. A Manufacturing Community Technical Hub is a program that started a couple of years ago to try to match adults who want to train for manufacturing jobs with the training they need, actually getting the hands-on work and then the jobs. A big leap has taken place in that program. They just got a $2.5 million investment to grow that program from Dalio Education and Philanthropy. And Samantha Miller is the point person there making that happen, putting the money into work. And she's here today to tell us all about it. Samantha Miller, welcome to Dateline New Haven.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me.
And thanks for coming in. You were filling me in about a lot of it. So I remember I went into that. There's a warehouse on Mill Street, 20 Mill Street, an empty warehouse. And I remember walking in there a few years ago when Match was starting. A nonprofit said, okay, people used to work in these factories, and now they don't. And a lot of jobs today aren't in factories, but there's still a lot of manufacturing going on. And a lot of people used to get those kind of jobs. It'd be good if they can again. So they kind of turned it not into a factory, but into a place where you can learn to work in a factory, correct?
Absolutely.
Like you get the kind of machines, you get the kind of training and that kind of stuff. So what's this mean now that Dalio is putting $2.5 million into that program, and over how much time is that?
Yeah. So what that means is that I get to partner pretty closely with the Match team in thinking about how they develop their organization and their programs. One of the things that I think is amazing and unique about the work that we do is thinking about how organizations exist, because strong programs can't exist without really strong organizations. And so I get to work with Match to think about how they develop their infrastructure, right? Everything from their financial management infrastructure to their board and leadership and their programs, staffing, and so forth, so that they can deliver a really strong program to the people they want to serve here in New Haven.
And will the money mean there'll be more training going on, more people hired to train people, more people getting money to train?
Yeah, I think so. Wonderful question, right? I think when we think about the money, where the money goes, one, Dalio Education through the Connecticut Opportunity Project, CTOP, the funding that we provide is unrestricted. And so in many ways, it is the organization's decision to decide how those funds are deployed.
That's funny because I actually do work with media groups in a similar situation, trying to grow and develop and get advice. So I guess one decision they always make is, do we spend dollars to build our organization so it can be around a long time and raise more money and be sustainable? Or how much money do we put right away to do the work we want to do? Is most of your role here to get them set up for long term so they can raise other money and make it work? Or is most of this $2.5 million going into machines and people working?
I think it's both and, right? I think we absolutely want nonprofit organizations like Match to be here long term to serve the community long term, as well as we want more people to be trained to have opportunities to enter the manufacturing field. But we think about this not in terms of the number of young people served or people served, but how they're being served, right? Because the end goal is that the people who are trained go on to employment opportunities and sustain in those employment opportunities.
So the answer is not, if you could post a number that says, we just got 30 more people through training, but if they're not really trained, they're not really going to have a job, who cares? But if you have 15 people and they have careers and they're feeding their kids and they go to a job every day and they're making something, that's what you want.
Absolutely. That's how I think about it, right? Placing someone in a job that they're then relieved from in 6 months doesn't change communities, and it doesn't change, families, generations to come.
So tell me about the overall needs. So when we talk about the economy, we talk about AI and people are going to lose certain kind of jobs. We talk about the need for healthcare jobs. We talk about the need for tech jobs, right? To develop software, to build those businesses, and that we're in Eds and Med City. We don't hear a lot of talking about what are the possibilities for manufacturing, but we know that's a real possibility. So what is the need you're stepping into, not just in New Haven, but more broadly in society?
Yeah, I mean, at Connecticut, manufacturing is still one of the largest employers here in Connecticut. And we know from some reporting done by CBIA that there are over 70,000 vacant manufacturing jobs.
Now, that is a huge statistic right there, because we think about the robots. I don't know if you've ever worked into Sargent's hardware, but that's an amazing place to work into because it used to be people and it's mostly robots now. But there's still these 70,000 jobs. And I've heard about this for years where they say we have jobs, but we have trouble getting people to work the jobs. That even though there's unemployment, people aren't ready to work. They aren't ready to come to a job every day and not be stoned or whatever it takes. I know that's kind of not a nice thing to say, but is that partly the mismatch here? Why are there 70,000 manufacturing jobs for people? Or maybe they just don't have skills.
Yeah, I would
There's
say
more math involved than in the past.
I would say it's all of that. One, I think for the people here in New Haven that Match is looking to serve, one, I think oftentimes folks don't see it or know that it's a pathway, that it's an option. And one of the things that I think is amazing and unique about Match are the people who created the program. These are manufacturers themselves, right? And they are embedded in the field and understand what the needs are and understand the needs in terms of not only the vacant roles, but the training that's required to open doors for young people.
And what kind of training is it? Is most of the training about how do you show up for a job? Most of it how do you operate certain kinds of machines that make aerospace parts?
It is both, because one can't exist without the other. One of the things that, we were there yesterday, that I was on site yesterday.
That,
yeah. And it was an amazing visit. And so when it's inspiring, we were able to see what was happening there live. And what we saw were a number of young people there on machines.
You're saying young people, what kind of ages are we talking about?
Young people, when I think of young people, I'm thinking about 18 to 26-year-olds.
Is that the target here?
They're also, that isn't the target, but that when I talk about young people, I talk about that they're also older adults there as well. Right now, they're prioritizing folks between the ages of 18 to 40. And so there's a range there. But when I talk about young people, I'm often talking about young people up to the age of about 26, but they serve folks older than 26-year-olds. But what we did see there yesterday were PEEP trainees who were on machines. Right, we had a conversation with a young man who was learning welding, and we were able to have a conversation with him about what brought him to Match and what is he hoping to gain after. One of the things he said to us was, I was incarcerated before this program, and Match actually reached out to me. And the minute I walked through the door, it felt like a family.
So it's like Match goes to Project Moore or Salvation Army, who was working with the.
Yes. They have an amazing person there that manages their recruitment. But this young man said, and when I came in the door, I felt like family. And has been training. He was doing welding. So it was day 2 on his welding, and he showed us how he put these two metals together. But he also talked about the other work that is happening there at Match. One of the other things that he's spending quite a bit of time thinking about is how he his transition from Match, right? So how do I become marketable so that I can apply for, get a job, and sustain a job? So he talked about already having had 2 interviews and having another one set up today, actually. We spoke to another young man who talked about, the fact that he was going to be shadowing with a manufacturer to learn additional skills. And so they're on machines, machine welding and forklift and the press brake, but they're also having.
What was the last one? A press brake?
A press brake.
What's that?
That is what they use to bend aluminum.
Oh.
Which I think is absolutely cool, for sure. But he talked a bit about in addition to these skills that they're gaining in terms of technical skills, right? Hard technical skills that prepare them for entry level positions in manufacturing. They're also learning some of the soft skills that I think oftentimes people don't think about that are barriers to employment, right? Professional communication, reliability.
Does that mean like showing up for work in time and answering the boss if they say, are you going to be able to do this work before the end of the day? Yeah.
Absolutely. I think oftentimes we forget that, these are also skills that are necessary in order to be successful.
So are there like classes, like someone come in for a few hours, work with someone machine a few hours, go into a class?
There are classes. And this is one of the areas to your point about like what happens from here on, right? This is one of the things that Match is looking to build out. I think they have a really strong program because these staff members understand what skills are needed. And so they have a strong technical skills program. And one of the things we're going to help them do is think about and build out what are the soft skills, right, that young people need? How do we train young people and help them build those skills? And how do we know that they've developed all of the skills that they need to in order to be successful?
So when you sign up for a program like this, they recruit you. Do you get paid while you're in it?
You do get paid while you're in it.
And is it how many hours a day?
So I want to say over the course of the week, there is 20 hours.
Okay. And then how long does it usually last?
So the program right now in its current configuration is a 5-week program and can go up to 7 weeks. one of the things that we're going to be spending time thinking about as we support them in further developing the program is that enough for everyone?
And then
Right.
it sounds like this follow-up
Yes.
that you see who got a job and help them get jobs.
Yes. So
Like I'm wondering if they're trusted directors to jobs. Like if I have a factory, if I know Match can send me somebody that's going to make me feel better about them, they've been vetted and trained. Is that kind of the idea?
Yeah, I think it's twofold. That is certainly part of the idea that Match being manufacturer themselves have relationship with employers and so really understand the need and are building relationships and credibility. So to your point, when they say we have a candidate that we think will be strong, it opens the door, right? Like the trainees have go in there and they show up themselves, right? They get the jobs, but it opens doors.
And are there follow-up counselors that make sure they're doing okay, or if they run into problems?
So that is certainly happening right now more informally than I think Match wants. And so that's one of the things that we will
You might help them grow.
Exactly.
So, and we're talking to Samantha Miller from Dallas Education. We just pumped $2.5 million into Match. That's our manufacturing training program for adults, young adults, and other adults in Fairhaven. Been around since 2023, and now it's primed to grow. So how many people go in those 5 to 7 week courses?
How many people go in currently? They've served, so right now their current cohort are 9 participants.
At a time. They do it all year, like every
Yes.
5 6 weeks. So what's going to happen now that wasn't happening before because you said it's up to them partly and you're helping guide them. So like what was their total budget before you granted them money?
And that is a good question. I don't remember that off the top of
But
my
is this
head.
doubling your budget, you think, or tripling, or?
I couldn't tell you, but I definitely I don't want to venture to say double in their budget or not, but it's a significant increase in their budget.
And is this a 5-year grant or 1-year grant?
It is a 5-year grant.
So it's $500,000 a year.
About that.
Yeah, that's a lot of money.
And Match, one of the things that they're very aware of is like they have a strong foundation and there's work to be done in really thinking about how to build out the organization and the program. I was mentioning before the show actually started that one of the things that's really exciting about the work is that we think about programming, but we also think about organizations. And we think about organizations and the infrastructure they need to sustain over long periods of time. And so we don't just focus on programs, but we support them in a number of other areas. As I mentioned before, programming being one of them, staffing, how do you build the internal capacity that you need to develop and expand your program, as well as board development and internal monitoring, right? How do you know what you're doing is being delivered in the way you intended to the people you intend to serve? How do you know that it's working? And when it's not, how do you pivot? And we support organizations in all those ways.
That's really interesting because you watch in New Haven. You've been here now 20. I mean, you first came here. You said 21 years ago. That you notice that some nonprofits, we write about this a lot, are able to evolve when conditions change, the needs change, and the organizations themselves lose the person who runs it for a while. Somebody new comes in. So you look at, for instance, Project Moore is having trouble after all those good years with ex-offenders, but a program like Desk, which helps the homeless and Soup Kitchen has grown dramatically under new leadership and at a time when it was really needed, or Favorite Health Center, how that pivoted. So it sounds like you're thinking more broadly about how does a whole world of nonprofits work to help younger people and young adults. From talking to you, that's the sense I have. That's the goal.
Absolutely. I mean, nonprofits are pillars in communities, right, that are providing critical services to the people in the community. And so we want them to be able to sustain over long periods of time to do the work that they intend to do. And that's, irrespective of the leader of the moment, right? Mm-hmm. I did see some of the challenges that Project Moore is having, given the transitions that have happened over the past year. And one of the things that we talk a ton with organizations about is how do you create the structures, and so that when transitions do happen, or the environment that you operate in right now changes, how do you sustain?
Yeah, I hope you succeed with that. So Samantha, you told me you grew up in the Bronx, you said, and that you came to New Haven in 2004 to work at Amistad, that when it was just a middle school then. What was your original job there?
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Bringing me back to 2004 when I came to New Haven and worked at Amistad. I was their high school placement and alumni support counselor.
Let me just stop for a second. High school placement, alumni support. So that was something we just talked about a minute ago. So you were responsible for seeing how the kids were going to thrive once they left the school.
Right. And so
That's interesting.
Yeah, I mean, it was interesting because not many places were doing it. And that was something that was really important to me to see, a young person through their journey long term, right? And so I had the pleasure to work with a number of high schools here in New Haven and other places to support the young people.
Oh, that's right. They were middle school. So
They
you're
were
saying, how
middle
you going to do it?
school.
So did you get to know the kids when they were there? You give them counseling and say, what high school do you want to go to? And then you'd follow up when they went to that high school?
Yes, and I went to the high schools. I met with guidance counselors. I met with teachers. We provided additional supports on site for young people who were having challenges. At the time, we worked with families to provide a number of options. So some of our young people went to traditional public schools, some went to magnet schools, some went to private schools, and so provided supports across those different types of schools, and then continued to support them after high school through college. I mentioned on my way up here, actually, I saw one of the young people that I worked with. Oh my God, way back when, who's now in her 30s.
And what's she doing now?
She had just had her third child, and I saw her with her husband, who's a correctional officer, and they were just on their way to grab lunch.
Okay. So can you think back when you worked at Amistad with a kid you worked with and you saw how you can make a difference with that kind of guidance and set them up for success, and maybe something you learned from that didn't work out the way you imagined? Like, do you remember any kind of pivotal stories from that time?
I remember a lot of stories, and some that worked out. I think,
Where you said, oh, okay, so this is how it could kind of work and make a difference.
yeah, I saw. There are a number of stories I can think about, and when I think about it in the context of Match, there are young people. I remember at the time that we were advocating very hard for young people to go to college. I went to college myself, had a wonderful experience. And one of the tensions I remember running up against quite a bit was that this pathway wasn't the pathway for all of our young people. And we didn't have a ton of other options to offer them. And that was really challenging. And there were some young people that we lost along the way. And that was really challenging. In particular, when I became the director of the alumni program.
Where was that? At the school?
It was still at the school, yes. And so when I think about, Match, for example, it's offering another pathway. And I think the conversation has changed quite a bit to recognize that we have to offer multiple pathways to our young people and adults, right? Because college isn't the best option for everyone. We want it to be an option, but we want multiple options so that young people have the options of self-sustaining careers. In college is one pathway, but it's not the only pathway.
Do you remember any kid in particular? I'm not saying like tell me the person's name or where they are, but I mean, do you remember a kid you had a conversation, said like, let's talk about college, and then you watched them and you saw they ended up becoming a plumber, making twice as much money as people who went to college or anything like that?
Yeah, I can think of one story that I'm thinking about right now. A young person who started out on the track to college and went to college and withdrew from college and had taken on quite a bit of debt. And one of the things, again, when we had conversations, that wasn't the pathway for that young person. And then we had a number of other young people who.
Do you remember what happened to him next?
Yeah. She struggled.
Was she?
She struggled quite a bit, and very soon was receiving letters to begin to pay off debt that she couldn't pay off. And so we spent quite a bit of time trying to figure out, what the next step was, what work was, another training program, and so forth. She decided to go in and do a phlebotomy class.
Well, that was good at Concat.
Yes. And so, again.
Is she a phlebotomist now?
I haven't spoken to her recently, so I can't say.
So you know what's interesting to me in that story? So you were the middle school alumni director. Sounds to me that was at a minimum 6 years after she left the school. She had to go to high school first before she went to college. She got to go to college before she dropped out. It had to go off before she got those letters. You weren't still in touch with her 6 years later.
So we were. So two things I would say.
How long were you the alumni director?
Yeah, I was the alumni director. So a couple of things I should say. When I arrived at Achievement First, we had graduating classes already, and we reached out to young people. The word that's coming to mind is track down, because we wanted to make sure that we were in touch with all of the young people who graduated from the school. That was the charge. That was the charge that my team had. Like every single young person who graduated from the school prior to the high school, we connected with and offered them support.
What a great idea. You never hear about that kind of follow-up.
Yeah, that's one of the things.
I mean, 6 years after you went to the middle school, you got someone there who's talking about how you're going to pay off these letters of debt and get you into Concat.
That's what brought me to the organization, because I knew that level of support for a lot of young people is important.
Because, support's one of those words like resources.
Yeah.
We say it a lot. It means something, but you can't picture it in your head.
Mm-hmm.
You can't picture a resource.
Mm-hmm.
You could picture a loan. You say, here's a dollar bill. You can picture, here's a car ride somewhere. Here's a meal.
Mm-hmm.
You can picture support. It's very vague, but it means she couldn't pay her debts. Hey, sign up at Concat. You can be a phlebotomist now.
Mm-hmm.
Has this sort of been the track of your career since 2004 when you've done different things? You mentioned to me that you started working nationally with advising schools, and then you worked with New Haven Public Schools. Is the thread through about how do you support people, young people, as they get older, and so they can have a sustainable way to live?
Yeah, so that has been the thread, at least for me, right? I deeply care about young people and the opportunities they have, and have seen, firsthand what it looks like when you don't have resources and opportunities. And so my career has been, how do I initially, right, first directly support young people in having the opportunities to improve and to grow and to improve their economic and social.
And is one of the things you're talking about how long do they follow people if they leave? And are you talking to them about that?
Yes, we are. And, that's one of the things that we will work on together, right?
Like right now, what happens?
So right now, what happens when they graduate the program, there is support. As a hub, folks can always come back and tap into the resources. That's one. Informally, there is also some follow-up. In many ways, employment specialist does follow up with the employer and the trainee. One of the things that we're going to spend time thinking about and building out, right? Because Match is the team is a very small but mighty team, very small.
How small?
Of 5 people. Very small team. And so they will need the capacity to do that kind of follow-up and support. And so one of the things that we will work on is, to your question, how long do you follow up with the folks, trainees who go through the program? What does that follow-up and support look like? What are the additional services that are provided?
So when you have a small and mighty team, everyone's doing everything. Are you talking to them about creating a position like you were doing 20 years ago at Achievement First?
Yeah, so that's, some of the things right now, everyone there does a lot. There's a lot of overlap. And one of the things that they realize is that everyone's also a case manager, right? And what would it look like? So one of the things that we'll spend time thinking about is like bringing on someone to do that work, whose dedicated role is to do that work. You just mentioned that, the idea of supports and resources is often this like nebulous word, right? What does it mean? We don't know. And it means things like transportation, right? Getting folks to their interview and back. It means things like providing clothing for folks to, show up feeling, confident at interviews. It means things like, for the folks experiencing food insecurity, having food available in stock so that folks can take it home with that. And it is all those things that they have realized is important to ensure that the folks.
Was there anything that you brought from your life experience and went into this work that guided you toward wanting to focus on how do you support people over time?
Yeah, one of the things that has been I've been thinking about as a part of my journey is the experiences that young people have and we all have exist within systems. And how do I think more broadly about the organizations and systems that are impacting the lives of us all, and how those pivot to better support young people. And so, what brought me here and brought me to Dalio Education and allows me to do this work is their focus on partnering with organizations and focusing not only on the outcomes, right, but thinking about what it looks like. We talked about organization before, but what does programming look like, and how do we know that the people we serve are getting what they need? And we know that doesn't happen in 6 months or overnight. And I feel honored to have the opportunity to work with organizations through the funding that we provide to support organizations over longer periods of time, because we know that's necessary.
Well, it sounds like you bring a lot of experience in interesting ideas about how you do that too. An organization sounds like a useful way. You're not just giving them money, you're giving them help.
Yeah, yeah, and that's what I love doing.
Well, good luck with Match, and I hope you succeed with that. I guess that's part of your portfolio. How many organizations do you work with?
I work directly with 3. What's really exciting about how we work is that we work across organizations as well to really leverage our expertise. So there's a team of 3 portfolio directors. I'm one of 3, and we work across the organizations we support to really leverage the expertise that each of us bring to the team.
Well, I hope you hit it out of the park.
I do
with
too, and I
Match.
hope you make it over there soon because there's some inspiring things.
I like
happening.
that place in Dalio Education. Thanks for joining us, Samantha Miller
Absolutely.
from Dalio Education and Match. Thanks to Harry Droz behind the controls. We're going to take it out with the Afro-Semitic Experience performing I Wish I Knew How It'd Feel to Be Free from the group CD, A Plea for Peace. This is Paul Bass inviting you to fly free with us all day and all night long at WNHH New Haven's home for community radio.